Yeah, thank you, guys. All this week we're dropping in on regional towns that have been hit hard by fires, floods, and then, of course, over the last couple of years, COVID. It's called the Mateship Miles Roadshow, and joining me now is Triple M's and Gotcha for Life founder Gus. It was a long night for everyone at home. It was a long night, but it's great to see you, Gus. How are you?
Great to see you, mate. It's just so good to be out and about, and last night was tremendous, and so many people here already this morning chatting.
Give everyone an idea of what you do and what we're doing this week.
Yeah, so Gotcha for Life's all about building mental fitness. It's all about giving people, the skills or the emotional muscle to have a conversation at the moment that we're not having in Australia. There's way too many of us worrying alone, way too many of us obviously taking decisions to take their own life, anxiety, depression, all that stuff. So for us, it's all about you and I. We've spoken about it, and at last we can be out on the road talking to Australians about the stuff that's really important.
We've tried to get this done for 2 years, haven't we?
We have.
And Gotcha for Life has been amazing. What people at home are seeing here are some of these group sessions. You also go into schools.
Yes.
The mental fatigue around the country in the cities and regional areas is enormous, and you take a lot on, and you see a lot of that yourself.
Yeah, I do, and it's one of those things that I think if you decide to go down this path, you know that you're going to be emotional. You know you're going to be talking to people when they're at their barest, and that's what Australians do if we give them the chance to actually stop for a moment and have a moment to talk about the stuff that's really important to them. I've already spoken to a couple this morning, the hardship they've been through. If you build a safe enough environment, they will talk, but at the moment, not enough Aussies are having those chats.
I don't know how you do what you do. It's sapping. And you take that burden on, so does Gotcha for Life. It's a very small non-for-profit organisation, and you do what you can with what little you have, and that's part of the reason why we're out here this week, is to try and raise a little bit of cash for you. Where does that cash go? What happens to it? Yeah,
so it's all about making sure that everyone, without any budget, can actually have the programs that we put in place. So it's all about building the rules of what it takes to be a man today, or what it takes to be a woman today, compared to what the rules were all those years ago. Because the life has changed, the world has changed, and at the moment people are scrambling, people are wondering about exactly how they can get through stuff. So we need to give them that emotional muscle.
And there's real burden too in these country areas. I know it happens in the city, but there's real feelings of isolation out here, where you're a long way from your neighbours potentially, and the connections are harder.
That's right. Loneliness is a big thing. Connections, having just a connection, having someone you can have a cuddle with, or someone you can have a proper conversation with. A lot of people take that for granted. There's so many people at the moment that are worrying alone. And Karl, if you are worrying alone, then blokes in particular, we can make some really poor decisions.
You've had some. And on that, you've had some pretty hard conversations even in the last few weeks, haven't you?
Yeah, I did. Unfortunately, I spoke to a father who lost his son, who didn't wait for his HSC results to come through, and took his own life thinking that he had failed those exams.
Oh, my God.
I sat with him last week, and he had in front of him letters from the university accepting his son. So his son made a decision without talking, without having an opportunity just to have a moment to go, Dad, I think I failed. And his dad being able to help him, he went off and made that decision. That emotional muscle wasn't there for that young child. That family now have lost that boy.
And they're left with the grief.
And they're left with the grief forever.
And what could we have done? And this is where this sort of fits in with it, right?
Exactly. So if we'd spoken to this lad, if we'd gone into his school, gone into his sporting group and actually given him the emotional muscle to actually have a conversation, put his hand up and realise that so many kids were going through that same thing, rather than so many kids, when we talk to them, they think they're the only ones that feel that way. So we need to have that conversation, and we need to do that as soon as possible.
You do it in a great way too. I mean, you do it naturally because you're obviously a wonderful communicator, but you have such empath for whoever you talk to. Just talking to locals around here and in Shepparton, I mean, I know there's been dramas here with drought. It's the fruit bowl too here, the Goulburn Valley. I mean, they need pickers here, so the workers on the land have been through tremendous amounts. That's the kind of stuff you're picking up.
Exactly right. And I just spoke to a couple that, didn't register their business in a way, so they couldn't get any help through COVID. And they're a photography business. They're going to take some photos for us today. It's beautiful shots around here. But they're actually now driving the father's car, who's a vet from Vietnam, who's battling himself with Parkinson's. I've got that in 5 minutes because I stopped and said, "G'day, how you going?" We just don't do that enough in Australia.
Yeah.
And then you hear the worries that people have, and then if you take a moment to go, how lucky we are, let's give that to as many people as we can.
It's a great thing. Gus is going to be with me all week, which is absolutely terrific. Also, if you want to donate, you can go to mateshipmiles.com.au. That's mateshipmiles.com.au. You know where the money's going. It's terrific. It's great to see you. Thank God there aren't any photos of you last night at the pub. That's all I can say.
I'll exit now. Thank you.
Thank you, Gussie. He's a terrific fella. It's a great organisation.
Now it's over to Karl, who's in Shepparton.
Long way from a cruise ship here in beautiful Shepparton. Charles, thank you so much. The Goulburn River not far from here, about 200 metres from here. It is a fantastic centre of life here for people in Shepparton. Lots of fishing, lots of water activity. Also around this area, lots of fruit. You might sometimes wonder where your fruit comes from. Well, chances are a lot of it in your shopping centre was produced here in this region. We've got a couple of Williams pears here. Also your Pink Lady apples. They're all produced here, which is fantastic. Peter Hall, Mitch McNabb and Michael Crisera are working the industry here in Shepparton. It's great to see you guys.
Yeah,
Thanks for being with us this morning. We were talking all morning, first of all, about how much fruit is produced here. It is really a food bowl, isn't it? Have you had many issues, and again, we've been talking to politicians about this, labour shortages and how that's affecting the industry?
Yeah, it has been pretty challenging the last couple of years, particularly with COVID. The things that have helped us have been the overseas worker programs that have come in, and that's really filled the gap that some of the holiday makers used to do in our region. So that's been helpful, but yeah, it has been challenging.
Okay, so at the moment, there seems to be a backlog, and is that consistent with what's going on your land? How's that affecting things like supply issues and the prices of things?
Yeah, look, when you don't have labour to pick your fruit, then you can't have it. You haven't got a product to start with, so that feeds into the overall issues that affect most industries. But this year we've sort of got through, mainly through help from overseas workers. That's been really helpful for us.
Okay, but still there's an issue with the number of people coming in. David Littleproud was talking about that before. So when you talk about an election coming up, this is one of the crucial issues facing here. You've been on the land a long time here. What? How long?
About 60 years.
60 years, and you as well?
Fifth generation, my family.
Fifth generation.
Running a business, yeah.
So explain to everyone sitting at home, maybe in the cities, what that means when you don't have the labour on and the supply issues, the costs going up, and then you've got trucks which are passing on. They've got problems with diesel rebates at the moment, so that just increases the product prices.
No, look, it's been a challenging year for growers, and I think the reality is that, trying to get some certainty around having available labour from overseas, which we've traditionally relied on, I think is important for us, and I guess for us to be able to get our fruit to market is key. So trying to allow us to have that reduction of costs going forward.
You obviously want everyone to get out there and buy fruit. What's the likelihood of the price? I mean, we were in the middle of harvest for things like Pink Lady apples now, right? When will those prices start to ease off, or do you see that actually happening at the moment?
I suppose in contrast, you're probably seeing, particularly for pears and apples, some of the cheapest prices.
Is that because of the supply?
Yeah, I think there's been a good supply, and I think we grow a lot of product here, and it just happens to be fairly low price at the moment. So I'd encourage consumers
get out there
and buy the stuff.
Put it in your freezer like my grandma used to do. What do you reckon about from an industry point of view? Are you getting heard by the federal government and also Labor heading towards this election?
Oh, look, I think everyone's listening to us at the moment, and the key point is obviously labour, and I think that the ag visa is going to be an important one for us, where we're going to need those options with labour moving forward, and obviously with the ag visa leading to migration, I think we've all forgotten about how important migration has been to this country, and I think the Asian ag visa is going to provide some of that and help fill those voids.
I've got to say too, it's an incredibly special place, Shepparton. It's a real melting pot of culture. There's a number of different migrants who've come here to work. It's fantastic, just the energy here and how cohesive it is. In terms of the election though coming up, Labor aren't agreeing to that, right? So where does that place you?
Oh, look, it's not helpful if they don't, actually, because we really do rely on our seasonal worker program workers, as well as hopefully if this new Asian ag visa, and if it's managed properly, obviously, I think it's going to add to our labour that we desperately need. We don't want to be short again in 3 years in a row is going to make things very tough for our growers.
Realistically, what do you think the timeline on all of that is? Getting a significant number of people in here to work to correspond with your harvest times, not just now with pink ladies, but later in the year for other fruits.
Look, I think that visa program is a solution, and we really would encourage Labor to get behind it. They've traditionally not supported those sorts of programs, but the reality is Australians generally have sort of veered away from doing that sort of work, and it's just a reality. It's not a criticism. So we need a supplementary labour force, and the Overseas Worker Program has done that. So we'd encourage all political parties to support that.
You're treading gently there in regards to young Australian workers. What is it? They're so lazy they don't want to get out there and pick fruit.
Look, it's a tough job, and if there's other work around that's more attractive, and they probably gravitate towards that. So it's just a reality. It's not a criticism. It's just a reality.
Sounds like a criticism. No, but I mean literally, it's a huge issue.
Yeah, it is a big issue. I mean, I'd encourage Australians if they want to get some work, particularly in the summertime up in the Golden Valley, come on up. There's plenty of jobs up here.
Yeah.
So we're not saying don't come, but the reality is that very few have wanted to be part of it.
Well, I used to pick mangoes back in the day in Dimbula in 35-degree heat in Cairns for $50 a week.
It sounds like a tough gig.
I'm still trying to get over it.
The
sap burnt my skin. Anyway, I was too soft for that job. But look, these the communities do a wonderful job. Appreciate you coming on and shedding some light for our audience back home. It's really great, and also to get this Gotcha for Life show on the road here. It's really important for local communities to talk about things, aren't it? Because you would see that firsthand, the effects it has mentally.
Yeah. I think the last couple of years have been pretty tough on particularly young people in schools. I don't know what it'd be like to go through that. So yeah, I'd encourage people to look on the brighter side now, and hopefully as we climb out of that, it'll be better.
Good on you guys. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And these lads are part of a really vibrant community here, and we're going to be in a different one of those communities every day of this week, spreading that message, getting people to stand around and chat like they are behind us. We'll have more of the Today Show live from Shepparton right after this. Stay with us. You're watching Today.